Now, I get the feeling that was a long answer, long chat about Luke Dalhouse, only so you could avoid chatting about the camp. And I, now, on the back of my statement on SEN on Friday, I kind of feel the same, but we probably wouldn't be doing our job in terms of podcast hosts unless we touched on it. So you obviously sit in an interesting and a very unique position, friends with most people involved or all people involved, but also you are carrying or wearing the hat or the cap of the president of the PA. So how have you enjoyed your past 3, 4, 5 days?
It's been eventful. I mean, I think in times like this, you reflect on your own organisation. And for me in this scenario, it's obviously been the PA, our role within it, and obviously you have a huge say in this because you were one of the players that was a part of this, and from our perspective as a PA, you reflect and go, what could have we done better? Without doubt, there's things that we could have done better, but we're also the challenge was getting through to you and to other players to have the confidence to talk about something that was clearly really, really difficult, and you articulated yourself so well, obviously last week on SEN, around the challenges when it's your club and you love your club as all and most players do. You feel such a sense of pride and responsibility to that club, and when there's challenges that arise like the camp in 2018. Raising that quite clearly is challenging, and that was one of the biggest barriers that we found at the time as a players' association, was getting through to the players and getting them to talk through their experiences and putting their name to their experiences where we could, dig deeper than what we were able to at the time. So, the learnings for us are clear on that. The challenges, I feel, from a PA perspective, were challenging to get through to players and have them talk about their experiences, which quite clearly players didn't feel comfortable in doing, and that's an area we've got to get better at. We needed to have Adelaide players feeling comfortable to talking to the PA, because around a similar time, Melbourne were going through and reported on their pre-season camp to the AFL PA, which was stopped, and whether this is a question for you, whether or not that had an impact on players not willing to share their part and their experience, because there was some pretty big I suppose stories on the back of Melbourne players talking up and reporting on that camp that they're not comfortable with it. We needed to get to that stage where Adelaide players felt comfortable enough to talk to us as a PA, and that's an area that we can improve.
Do you, sitting back, you being the PA still, do you feel you need to make some changes in terms of if a situation of this nature was to arise again? Would you be comfortable that the message has gotten out there and people understand, or players understand, you have to be absolutely transparent with what happened? Or do you think there are some levers that you, the PA, need to be able to pull to not necessarily have the full story, but to be able to go in and find out, perhaps?
Well, we're not an investigative body in that respect.
Should you be? Or should you have an arm or a liaison who can act in that manner for you?
Well, that's the role of AFL Integrity, which once again sits separate to the AFL and then sits separate to the AFLPA. So that's their role whenever something like this arises, and those resources that go into that. Do
you two independent bodies liaise when an investigation is happening?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't have those details. Okay. I in my role as president, it's quite clearly removed from those inner workings.
That's another point I was going to make. Are there times like this where you feel like a player as the president of the union is actually can be considered a negative? Because I personally, you and I had some discussions about what went on, your view, and I asked you for your point of view from the PA I'm talking versus my point of view. And I thought all along, well, is it right that a player, because you are thrust, like it or loathe it, you are thrust you and Paul Marsh are thrust as the face and as the guiding force of the PA, which is probably unfair on you in a situation like this. So is there enough, probably isn't, but is there any merit in the fact that having a player as the president or having a president in place can do more harm than good in a situation like this?
Oh, I'm not sure around more harm than good. I mean, my role as president, it's not the inner dealings of the day-to-day business runnings.
Yes.
And the same around, so when this was first flagged, it's not going into full depth around the conversations with players and those sorts of things. And, the big challenge was getting through to people and players like yourself and others, and getting the full story and then having your name put to that. And that was the biggest challenge for players to feel comfortable. And that's something that, upon reflection, we can certainly, look to improve, so we can get to the not the bottom of it, but as much information as possible from the players, from their point of view. And, if you look now, how can we make sure that this doesn't happen again? And there are parameters around that that are built in. There's always learnings that you learn from every experience, and we've learned a lot from this, and we've just got to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again. Adelaide have been forthright, with their statements around this and how they can improve, and that's all we can do, I think, as a code and as governing bodies around that, to make sure that we provide a framework and an environment that is as safe as it possibly can be for players.
Okay, let's leave the camp in the rearview mirror.
Can you now?
Well, I can, but I can also say with a level of certainty that it won't be the last we hear of it.
Yeah.
So that is what it is. I've said my piece, and
do you feel at peace with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I took a call on the weekend spoke to Rob Chapman, the former chairman, and had a good chat to him, and took him at face value with everything he said, and I asked him whether I said anything he disagreed upon. So we had a good chat, but I don't have the energy nor the desire to be on the phone endlessly about this and talking to people, or if it's accepting apologies and all those type of things. I'm not seeking apologies. It is what it is. People can make their own, or people can have their own actions and have their own views on it. But Pat, I'm a little too busy and a little too focused on what's ahead now.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Was the challenge that you had as a player who's had an indifferent upbringing, and you've spoken at length, and I've known you for a long time, so I understand this.
Yep.
But your relationship with your mum and dad is not like what most families are. And for me, Adelaide, for you, I always found was that family. And obviously Tom Lynch we've been great mates for a long time. And I always pictured for you, Adelaide was that real connection piece that you found with people in a place that gave you real belonging, which most people get from, when they walk home, and what they get from their immediate family, from mum and dad. Was that one of the challenges that you had? Because Adelaide, for that, for you, was that?
Yeah, probably, and subconsciously more so than anything. Probably that's accurate in terms of I had it, or I found it going there, and then I had it for a long period of time, and then I had it taken away, not through really any choice of my own. So yeah, probably that was a, as I said, something that was subconsciously happening, and I hadn't even really computed it. There was a lot happening, and I was doing or trying to go through a lot of things, and also trying to find a new home, trying to focus on getting to a new club and continuing my playing career. So yeah, I actually think that's a very valid point that and not one we've coordinated at all. But I did find that Adelaide was the first place. I bounced around everywhere with basketball in Northern Queensland and in South Australia and Mount Gambier and here, there and everywhere in between, and played some footy at Essendon and whatnot. So absolutely, I thought Adelaide.
It's the first time you really
Felt
stopped.
really settled, yeah. So that is a good point, and to have it taken away, and that's how I felt. People will have their own views on it, but to have it taken away probably only added to the angst and to the emotion of it as well. But I think I had some people who know me well say that on the radio they feel like they could hear the weight lifted off my shoulders. So that's how I feel, and I'm just full steam ahead in terms of my part-time role with you guys at the Cats and trying to be involved in something special and the other things that I'm doing away from footy plus the 3 girls that I've got to chase after.
Yeah, we were trying to navigate around Lottie before.
Yes.
Now, this was brought to light off the back of Eddie Betts' book, The Boy from Boomerang Crescent. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously really brave to talk about it, but I feel like we've spoken at length around the camp. It has taken away a bit, I feel, of the incredible story that is Eddie's story,
yes.
and his upbringing, and literally the boy from Boomerang Crescent growing up in Port Lincoln to joining Carlton.
Yes, yeah.
The life experiences, learning to read and write, and he's spoken at length around that and what they provided him to play 350 games, become one of the greatest small forward the game's ever seen. It's an incredible story, and it's so much more than just that chapter. And I know Eddie spoke about that on AFL 360 last week, but do yourself a favour and have a read, pick up the book, because it's just incredible, and it does make me think as a code that we've got to continue to look for ways that we can bring other people into the game that come from far different upbringings than your generic and run of the mill 95 percentile of the population that get these opportunities. It's an incredible story.
Absolutely, it is. It's and I know a lot of it without needing to read the book, but the book has detail, and that's the beauty of a book. It has detail that's considered. You're able to sort of you sit and write it probably multiple times before you're happy with it, and every detail, and you probably think of other things that happen throughout your life that you want to go back and include. So it's a long time coming. It takes a long time. It's a long process, and I know Eddie countless times wrote it and rewrote it and thought about it again and included other things, took out other things. So I agree. It is a. I've read a few chapters thus far. I didn't necessarily need to start at chapter 17 like most others, but it is a great story, and one that I presume many people will be able to get their hands on, particularly with ebooks and audio books and all these types of things these days. So I agree, Pat.
Eddie Betts, the boy from Boomerang Crescent, in all good bookstores.
Oh, hello. There's a full-on ad.
Look at that.
It's a full-on ad.
Do yourself a favour. All right.
Let's move along.